Hi, my name is Matt Schweitzer with Sloan Implement, and here today to talk a little bit about planter wear and kind of some common items to look for on your John Deere planters. I want to focus on the row unit today and point out a few common items we see often. So starting out, this goes for really any model row unit. We've got our parallel arms here, we've got bushings here. As they get some age on them, we can get these bushings start to show some wear and slop in those. So we can see that just by wiggling the row unit left to right. Moving on down, really common are our gauge wheel arms and bushings here. We see a lot of play in those after we get some age on that planter. So to check those, I can just pick up on my gauge wheel arm and the gauge wheel and wiggle in and out. And if I see a lot of play here, it might be time to think about replacing those. Moving on down the planter, I've got my closing wheel assembly. So again, bushings right here, that's a very common wear item. If you just take the tension off the handle, we can wiggle left to right. So even a brand new planter will have just a little bit, but if we start seeing a lot of play there, it's probably time to replace these bushings. If it gets bad enough, it can wear into the arm as well. Now, a big thing with planters that everyone looks at would be openers, right? So openers are a wear item. A new opener measures 15 inches, and it's easiest to measure that if you take it off the planter and use a tape measure. Sloan Express does sell a tool we can use for that. Basically in the tool, if you can see daylight through the gap in the tool, that would indicate those blades are worn out. We recommend replacing them at 14.5 inches, and that's just due to lack of adjustment. So once you get down below that 14.5, if you adjust it to where you still have your point of contact with the two blades, then that opener starts wearing up against the seed tube guard or the brush cartridge guard, and it can rub other things like the frame. It becomes harder to get that 2 inches of contact. Also, it has a harder time making that true V. So as blades wear, that's the big thing. With our opener blades, we want them to make a nice even V. If they get worn, they'll start making a true W, and that's going to affect spacing as well as your depth, and you'll have uneven emergence then. So openers is a big one. We can get those through John Deere or Sloan Express as well. Moving on, if we talk specifically about our ExactEmerge planter here, we got a few wear items we can point out. So starting with the meter, not a lot of high wear items in the meter, but a couple to point out here. So as we look at our meter here, I've got my wear pads, my ceramic wear pads around the outside edge. That's actually what my seed bowl rides on. So once the little dimple in the wear pad is gone, that would indicate that those are ready to be replaced. These are new, so they don't have much wear. If those wear pads don't get replaced, that bowl would start to wear into the housing, and that's what we're trying to avoid. That could create vacuum issues or possibly seed jamming in between the housing and the bowl. So other wear items would be your vacuum seals on the hub as well as in the door. We just want to check and make sure those are in good condition with no cracks or wear on those. Otherwise, the big one would be the bowl. I want to inspect my bowls to make sure they're in good shape. Now, I don't have a used bowl here with me today, but just want to check and make sure we don't have any deep grooves in the bowl. Right where they contact the vacuum seal, they'll start getting a groove cut in them. And if that groove gets deep enough, it'll actually wear into the holes in the bowl. So that can affect vacuum performance and start to affect singulation as well. So best way to know if your meter's in good shape is to run those meters. On an ExactEmerge planter, you can run them right there on the planter, run seed through them in a stationary position, and it'll give you a singulation readout as well as spacing and population, and that'll tell you if your meter's performing as well as it should be. So moving deeper into my ExactEmerge, if I remove my hood, I can access my brush belt. There are a few wear items in the brush belt we want to talk about. So to remove that, I'm just going to pull backwards on the brush cartridge and unseat it away from the motor. Then I'm going to set my depth to 0. That helps me give me a little bit more room to pull it up out of the shank here. I'm going to unplug my seed sensor, and then I can remove that cartridge out of my row unit. So to access my belt, I'm just going to take the covers off of this cartridge and set them aside, top and bottom. Then we can access my brush belt. So to get the brush belt out of the cartridge, I'm just going to detension this belt. That takes the tension off, and then I can just simply pull that belt up and out. So if I remove the belt, we'll start with the belt itself. This is a used belt, so this would be a good example of one that's getting some wear on it. The biggest thing I see right now is the groove in the center of the belt. And I've got a new belt we'll show you to compare. My brand new belt is nice and flat across the top, where the used one has a groove cut into the center. So that's where my seed is getting placed. What you'll see is, especially in soybeans, instead of the seed getting inserted into the brush, it'll want to roll across the top as it goes down through my cartridge, and that'll cause singulation and spacing issues as well. So if you see that groove, that would be an indication it may be near the end of its life. Some other indicators would be the backing. You could check the backing and make sure there's no cracks or splits or anything in the backing. You can check the condition of the rest of your bristles, make sure there's no large frays, or sometimes we see seed get left in the bristles over winter. Those seeds can create an indentation, and that indentation stays and doesn't want to go away, and that can cause us issues too. So the best way to avoid unwanted wear on your brushes is to store them properly. So what we recommend is to take them out of the brush cartridge over winter and hang them on maybe a piece of PVC, like 3 or 4 inch PVC, or another guy said hang them on a 5-gallon bucket, but a nice round surface, and just let them hang upright. You don't want to just throw them in a box all wadded up, and that can damage them, and they can retain those messy shapes. So the other reason to take them out, if you leave them in, what will happen is it'll conform to the shape of that bottom pulley. It's kind of a tight bend, so that can cause you issues if you do that year over year. Another big reason is just to keep mice or anything like that out of those brushes, and we want to also clean the seed out at the end of the season as well. So taking them out is just the best practice to make them last as long as possible. Now moving on here, a couple other wear items. I've got this silver, this stainless steel wear strip in the kind of the back side of my brush housing there. So that stainless steel wear strip, the seeds can actually rub up against that as they're traveling down towards the ground. So what I want to look for is I can take those out and I can see a groove or some divots in that stainless piece. It'll actually get kind of a washboard effect. So if you see that groove or that washboard, that would be an indication you'd want to go ahead and replace those. Again, if we're ejecting that seed and it hits a speed bump, that's going to throw off our spacing as well. So check those 3 stainless wear strips. We do offer those through Sloan Express as well. Our pulleys, the top pulley, I like to just turn it and make sure it still turns nice and smooth, doesn't feel rough. As well as the bottom pulley, what we see often, and you can kind of see it on this one, is one of these lips might be worn down. They can get very sharp, so be careful. We see it a lot on the bottom side. It'll get worn down. So what that causes is the belt will actually run off center. It'll actually run on the edge of this pulley. It can damage the backing on the brush belt and cause premature wear on your belt. So you want to check your pulleys there and make sure they're not sharp or worn down on one side or the other. On the bottom here, we also have a conditioner bar. So that actually fluffs the bristles and just cleans debris and trash out as that bristle goes around. Those conditioner bars are contacting that brush at all times, so they will wear over the course of a season. You want to check if they're worn more than halfway through, it's time to go ahead and replace those. They can get very sharp and start damaging the bristle as well if they go too long. So that's a yearly inspection as well. So guys, that's the highlights for my brush cartridge. Again, with a little routine maintenance and inspection, we can keep them up and running and planting like we need them to. So any questions, contact Sloan Implement and we'll get you lined out. Thank you.